Welcome to Tuesday's edition of Renew Plus. I'm Pastor Tony. Thank you for joining us again today. And we're going to get back into our series entitled No Doubts. This is week number 6 of this series. And so if you missed any, go back and listen to those. And then this will make even more sense to you. But we were talking about yesterday and laid the foundation for this week, the fact that when God originally created everything, now again, Jesus created, or God through Jesus, we can say, God the Father through the Lord Jesus Christ created the visible realm and the invisible realm. The heavenly realm, the earthly realm, the physical realm, the spiritual realm, we can say, the seen realm and the unseen realm. We can just go on and on. And man was supposed to live in both realms. But God originally intended for man to live in the absolute good environment that he had created for man to live in. It wasn't until after Adam sinned in the Garden of Eden, he fell, that the law of sin and death began to corrupt the creation and began to make the creation a mixture of both good and evil. And that's why we see today sickness and disease, poverty, famines, wars, catastrophes, calamities, all those things. God never intended for man to experience any of those evil things. He intended for him to only experience the absolute, perfectly, very good environment that he had created for man and put him in to begin with. But of course, because of the sin and the fall of man, everything was corrupted, and now we see and experience a mixture of both good and evil here in this physical, natural, visible realm that we live and walk in today. Now, why is that important for our understanding? Because if we're going to base the foundation for reality and truth in our life based on what we see, what we feel, our natural senses and natural reasonings, then we're always going to be under deception. We're always going to have a distorted perception of God, the spiritual realm, God's will and intent for man to begin with. And so we need to understand that there are two realms there. Man was supposed to be a dual being, living as a spirit being, in having contact, connection with the spiritual realm, but also living in a physical body, having a natural experience while we walk and govern and dominate the earth. Now, there's so much more we could go into about that, and that really is for another series, but that's the basis for the foundation for this week, because what we're trying to do is find out where doubts and unbelief come from, and of course, how to eliminate and eradicate those doubts from our life. Now, we're going to go over to 2 Corinthians today, 2 Corinthians chapter 4, and pick up just a couple of verses here, kind of go along with this today. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse number 16. It says, "Therefore we do not lose heart. Even though our outward man is perishing, yet the inward man is being renewed day by day." So again, I want you to see there that we have an outward man. That's the physical body. We can call it our earth suit, so to speak, that we're temporarily, presently living in while we're on the earth. But that's not the real us. The physical body that we live in right now, that is not the real us. Any more than the house that you live in, that you sleep under the roof of when you go home at night, that is the real you. No, probably at some point in time you moved out of one house and moved into another one, and then you moved into another one, and then you moved into this one, and that probably is not going to be the last house you live in either. But that doesn't mean when you leave a house, you move out of a house, that you cease to exist. No, because the real you is the part that lives inside of that house. And see, that's what he's saying right here, that the outward man is the physical earth house that we presently live in right now, but that's not the real us. And that should not be the basis for reality in our life. See, if you're using the flesh, the physical realm, as a basis for reality, you're going to be under confusion. You're going to think that God's will is both good and evil. Nope, you have to go back to the original intent, the way God originally put this thing in motion to begin with, that it was very good. In other words, it was absolute 100% good. Evil didn't come into the picture and corrupt this thing until Adam fell, because he was the governor that God gave dominion to rule and reign over and to guard. So again, notice that there is an outward man, but then there is an inward man that's being renewed day by day. Now, what is the inward man? Well, the inward man is the spirit part of you. That's the part that was created in the likeness and the image of God. That is the real you. And that's the part that we have to really serve as the basis and the foundation for reality and truth in our life. It's the invisible spiritual realm. And again, because we say it's invisible, doesn't mean it's unreal. No, the invisible spiritual realm is more real than the natural visible realm that we're accustomed to. Now, verse 17, it says, "For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, is working for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory." Now, what we presently experience here in this natural realm, because it's a mixture of good and evil, then we're going to have, and according to what Paul said, light afflictions. Now, he said that personally. He said our light afflictions. Now, if you read the stuff that he went through, I tell you, most of us would probably have caved in. We would have given up. We were just thrown in the towel. But he didn't. And it's because of his perception of this right here that I'm talking about. And because of his perception of truth, reality, being in the spiritual realm, because of the spiritual realm that he was very, very well acquainted with, he said it is our light affliction. Now, why is it a light affliction? Because first of all, it's temporary. Second of all, in comparison to what's on the inside of us, in comparison to the eternal weight of glory that's presently in our spirits, that light affliction is nothing. 10,000 light years from now, you're not going to be concerned about your refrigerator going out, or you suffering some persecution, or people talking bad about you at work or at school. You're not going to be thinking about that at all. You know what you're going to be thinking about? You're going to be thanking God that you learned the truth, and that you are not moved by a lot of the natural reasonings and based your reality and truth on this natural realm, because you're going to be in heaven enjoying all the realities of heaven, that invisible realm we're talking about, in perfect fellowship with God, having peace and joy at his throne. But notice in verse number 18, it says, "While we do not look at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal." Again, we go back to the visible and the invisible. He says, while we do not look at the things which are seen. That would be this natural, physical realm, the visible realm that we're accustomed to. That, I can look around and see all the natural creation right now. It's beautiful even in his fallen state. I mean, it's hard to imagine what it is in his perfection state. Well, God's going to recreate the heavens and the earth. He's going to put it back in order the way he intended it and originated to begin with. It is going to be awesome. If you think you've seen a great sunset on the beach or in the mountains or somewhere, you ain't seen anything until God puts it back in order the way he intended it. But we can enjoy it even now. It says, while we don't look. Now, that word look is not just the natural eyes, but it's your focus. We can just say it that way. While our focus, or what we consider, are not the things which are seen. Why is that? Again, because what we see, the natural realm, the visible realm, is corrupted. It is not the perfect will of God. It does not reflect the perfect purpose, plan, and will of God for the earth or for mankind. You have to understand that. There is a God. He's perfectly, absolutely good. Now, a lot of people's theology thinks, well, God is the originator of both good and evil. No, that can't be. He can't be both good and evil. No way. There is a devil. Whether you believe it or not, there is a devil, a fallen archangel called Lucifer, who became Satan. We've already talked about him. He's the accuser of the brethren. He is the source of all evil. Jesus said it in John chapter 10, verse 10. He said, the thief, referring to Satan, the devil, comes to only in order to steal, to kill, and to destroy. That's evil. See, his evil oppression and influence in the earth causes death, causes things to be destroyed, causes things to be stolen away from us. But see, Jesus said, but I have come that you might have life and have it more abundantly. See, that's the good. Jesus came to restore the perfect will of God, the good to us. But listen, it does not start in this visible realm. It starts in the invisible realm, in the spiritual realm, and then works outward. And that's what we're going to be getting into as we progress through this week. So again, while we do not look, focus, consider the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. In other words, our focus, our consideration, the basis and the foundation for truth and reality in our life cannot be this seen physical realm. It has to be the spiritual realm, the heavenly realm where God is. And then it goes on to say, for the things which are seen are temporary, but the things which are not seen are eternal. Notice what he says right there. You know, everything in this physical realm is subject to change. In fact, it is in constant change because it's under constant influence from either good or bad, good sources or bad sources. You know, I'm looking at trees around us. Trees die, not because that's the will of God, but because of the law of sin and death, because of the fall of man, because things really in this realm have not been put back in perfect reflection of the way God intended it to be to begin with. So at the beginning, you know, we talked about God through Jesus created the visible and the invisible realm. Well, at the beginning, before the fall of man, sin and the fall of man, the visible realm perfectly reflected the invisible realm. The visible realm, the earth realm, perfectly reflected the will and the purpose of God, which is absolute perfection and good. It was only after the fall of man that things in the seen, visible realm became skewed, where you couldn't trust what you were seeing because things were in constant change and they were in a temporary state. Now that's good or bad. You understand that. If you're going through something bad, you have to remember, you know, that phrase in the Bible, one of my favorite phrases, it shall come to pass. In other words, it's temporary. But if you're going through something good, you have to enforce by faith the will of God through your faith so that things are good in your life and remain under the blessing. So he says, for the things which are seen are temporary, subject to change. But notice, but the things which are not seen, that invisible realm, the spiritual realm, the heavenly realm, the supernatural realm, those things are eternal. They're not subject to change. God is always going to be the same. You don't have to worry about God getting up tomorrow in a bad mood and wiping everybody out. No, God's not like that. He's not moody. He's not temporal. He's eternal. His word is eternal. The things of the Spirit in heaven are eternal. Your salvation, eternal. See, and all those things are related to that. Now, look over to the next chapter here, 2 Corinthians chapter 5. We're going to look at just one verse here. Verse number 7. It says, for we walk by faith and not by sight. We walk by faith and not by sight. See, faith gives you access to and helps you understand, perceive, and connect with the supernatural, spiritual, heavenly, invisible realm where God is. It helps connect you with God Himself, not your sight. If you're going by sight, you're going to be deceived. If you're going by what your natural senses are telling you, including your natural vision, your natural feelings, then you're going to be riddled with doubts and unbelief. See, that's what the enemy wants to do, even with the believer. He wants to lock you down and keep you under natural senses, natural forces, because then he can dominate you and control you. It's only when you step out of that and start walking by faith, faith in the Word, faith in the finished work of Jesus, faith in the blood of Jesus, that's when he loses control and he can't manage you anymore. That's when you're going to overcome him and you're going to overcome all his attacks. That doesn't mean that he's not going to attack you, but I can tell you you're going to overcome 100% of the time. That spiritual, unseen realm that we're talking about, the heavenly realm, is your home court advantage. Don't give up your home court advantage. Stay in faith and not walking by sight. Well, that's all the time I've got for today. If you'd like additional resources and materials, go to tonycowan.org, and we will see you tomorrow.